Today we're going to finish chapter 4. We're just going to spend a little bit of time talking about how to graph absolute value, and then you're just going to do some practice in class today, okay? And then we're going to move on to chapter 5. So when we talk about absolute value, we have solved absolute value equations before. Somebody just remind me, what does it mean when we say absolute value? Tatum?
How far a number is away from zero.
Yeah, how far a number is from 0, which means when you take the absolute value, it's always going to be what type of number, Callan? Positive, okay? Now, does that mean your final answer has to be positive? Not always, right? It just means when you take absolute value, that answer has to be positive, okay? So we're going to look at how to graph specifically today. There's a couple things we need to know. We are going to make... we're going to make a chart. Now, typically, I'll make you find 5 points. Okay, now here's the deal with absolute value. You have to know where to start at to know what values to choose for x, okay? How we do that every time is you take what's inside your absolute value, so in this case, just x, and you set it equal to 0 and solve. Now, if all that's inside my absolute value is x, do I have to solve anything or am I already done? Like, is there anything to solve right here, you guys? No. Okay, so that tells me I'm going to start with 0. 0 needs to be in the middle of the values I'm choosing. Okay, so when I make my chart over here, I'm going to leave 5 spaces, and I'm going to put 0 in the middle. Now, after I put 0 in the middle, all I need to do is choose the numbers that are on either side of 0. So what numbers are on either side of 0?
-1, 1.
So -1 and 1, and then what numbers are next to those? -2 and 2. Okay, so the reason that is because if you just choose like 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'll show you this when we start graphing, but it's only going to give you one side of your graph and it won't look like how absolute value is supposed to look. So that's why we always have to start with what's in the middle, we set it equal to 0, and then we go from there, okay? So if I'm going to solve, how would I find out what the y value is if x is -2? Plug it in, right? So we would get y equals 2 times the absolute value of -2. Now, does anyone know how to solve this? What would be the first thing you would have to do? Yeah, take the absolute value of -2, so that would be 2 times what? What's 2 times 2? 4, okay? So when x is -2, y is going to be 4. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing for 1. Y is going to be equal to 2 times the absolute value of -1. What's the absolute value of -1? 1. So then I'm going to be doing 2 times 1, which is 2. So when x is -1, y is going to be 2. Okay, same thing with 0. Now, absolute value of 0 is still just going to be 0. What's 2 times 0? 0. Now, here's where you're going to start to see the reason we chose these numbers. Okay?
Isn't I just going down by 2?
Nope. That's why I said you're going to see right here. What's the absolute value of 1? What's 2 times 1? 2. Okay, anybody have a guess what we're going to get on our last answer?
4.
Yes. Right? What's the absolute value of 2? 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? Which, this is what we want to happen every time. We have a number in the middle, and then notice we get the same y values on each end. Okay? Because that's going to give us the correct type of graph. All right? So, we're going to go down here. I'm going to try to zoom out so you can still see those numbers. Again, you don't have to make your graph take up your whole page. I'm just doing that so you can see. And then we're going to plot those ordered pairs. So at -2, we go to +4. -1, +2. 0, 0. 1, 2, and 2, 4. Now, what type of graph did that make? What's our graph going to look like? What letter is that? Yeah, it's going to look like a V. Absolute value, every time, it should look like a V. Okay, now, on your work today, I really don't know how many points Alex is going to make you do. I'm going to do 5 every time because most of the time, I think that's what they're going to want. They may only make you do 3. We'll see. Okay? All right?
We done? No.
You think that's enough for you to do every other kind of problem? Okay, then if you can do this next problem, I'll let us be done.
Pass.
Huh?
Pass.
You said you know how to do it.
I'll take dates.
Okay. Okay, every time, you guys, we're just going to find 5x values. What did I tell you to start with last time to know where to start? Well, but last time was different. Remember I said take what's inside your absolute value and set it equal to what? Set it equal to 0, okay? So x minus 2 equals 0, and then I have to solve for x. How would I solve for x here? How did you get that?
2 minus 2 is 0.
Okay, but how do we solve equations, you guys? We've been doing this for months now. How do I get x by itself?
Plus 2.
Add 2. Thank you. Okay, so x equals 2 should be in the middle of my chart, right? And then I choose the numbers, 2 numbers that come before 2, 2 numbers that come after 2. What 2 numbers come right before 2?
1, 0.
1 and 0, after 2, 3 and 4. Okay? I forgot to tell you on this last one, right? If I only choose, like, if I hadn't chose numbers on this side and I only chose 1, 2, 3, and 4, the only part I would see is this red line, and you guys would think that it looks like this, okay? That's why it's important to start, know what's in the middle, and go from there, okay? Again, now all I have to do is just go plug those numbers in, okay? So, JC, what's the first number I'm plugging in for x?
0.
So I get y equals absolute value of 0 minus 2, and then I'm going to subtract 3, okay? Now, here's where you have to be careful. What is 0 minus 2? So I would let you maybe, like, I don't know how you all want to do that. If you want to write -2 above that, okay, just to save some space. What's the absolute value of -2? So I get 2 minus 3. What is 2 minus 3? -1. Okay? All right, Alice, what's the next number I'm plugging in for x? So absolute value of 1 minus 2. What is 1 minus 2? -1. And what's the absolute value of -1? So I get 1 minus 3. What is 1 minus 3? -2. Okay. Callan, what's my next number?
2.
Okay. Callan, what's 2 minus 2?
0.
All right. What's the absolute value of 0?
0.
Okay. And what is 0 minus 3?
3.
-3. Now, do we already know what numbers we should get here? What numbers should I get?
-1,
-2 and then -1, but let's check and make sure, okay? So, 3 minus 2, and then I'm subtracting 3 from that. What is 3 minus 2? 1. What's the absolute value of 1?
1.
And 1 minus 3? Negative 2. Okay, same thing on the last one. 4 minus 2 gives us 2. Take the absolute value, it stays 2. What is 2 minus 3? Negative 1. Okay. Now, truthfully, I know sometimes this seems like a lot of work. The biggest thing I'm going to tell you is you just have to be careful about what is in your absolute value, not messing that part up. If you guys can handle that, it shouldn't be a problem. Okay. And then we're just going to go graph those on our graph. Okay. All right.
Should they all be these?
Every single time. Yeah. Anytime that you graph an absolute value, if you put your graph on and it doesn't look like a V, then you know one of your points is wrong somewhere. Okay? Yeah. All right.